Civil War rhetoric is on the rise. And when I see stories just like more street violence, we have that story from Berkeley where the conservative dude just got clocked. The insane lefty dude just gets in his face and then starts beating him and then punches him a couple times, with the last one being a straight up sucker punch. I see stories like that, and what I think a lot of people don't realize when they mock Trump derangement syndrome, it's really funny that these people are just frothing at the mouth and then punching people, but you have to realize these people are insane, okay? I'm not saying everyone on the left is insane. A lot of people who identify as left are just uninitiated, don't pay attention to politics, although I think that's not most of them. I think the average person who would consider themselves liberal is not paying attention. But you look at the story that we have in Eugene, Oregon. The guy shows up with patriarchy and chill, smashed the patriarchy and chill shirt, pulls a concealed gun out of his pocket, fires 2 rounds at a cop, gets a bullet in the head. A week later, far-left protesters come out saying they killed a comrade. A week after that, somebody plants a bomb at a police department. I feel like there is a potential here for, it's not going to be like what the 1800s. I think we're going to see some kind of, the culture war will get physical. It'll get scary. It already is kind of scary. You can't even go out and flyer without someone just walking up and punching you in the mouth. Now we have the story. This is from CBS News. Steve Bannon expects 2019 to be the most vitriolic year since the Civil War. And what I found fascinating by this, it's a short story, but I have a couple others because Civil War rhetoric seems to be on the rise. People keep drawing parallels to the first Civil War. And when we're looking at street violence, we're looking at people who can't reconcile two dramatically different worldviews. You have in 2016, Nicholas Matt and Jordan Peterson. Nicholas Matt says it's not correct that there is a such thing as biological sex. That is dangerous science denial, okay? Biological sex exists. You can look to Brett Weinstein and understand the nuance when he explains it's not binary, it's bimodal, where 98% of males and 98% of females are like discernibly male or female, but there is intersex. The point is, male and female exist. This says nothing about the trans community. But when you have people who deny science, and I'm not talking about just the left, anybody who, like flat earthers, how do you convince somebody that they're wrong when they don't want to believe it? Now, are flat earthers going around bashing people over the head with clubs, bike locks, throwing Molotov cocktails? They're not. I'm not concerned with flat earthers. But the far left are getting into politics. The Green New Deal from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is using environmentalism to mask their freaky religion. Let's see what Steve Bannon had to say. I don't want to rant too much. With the anticipated upcoming release of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's final report, ongoing probes by prosecutors in the Southern District of New York into President Trump's business, and Democrats in control of the House, former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon predicts 2019 will be a vitriolic and nasty year in American politics. I think that 2019 is going to be the most vitriolic year in American politics since before the Civil War, Bannon said in an interview with CBS News correspondent Seth Doan on Saturday. And I include Vietnam in that. I think we're in for a nasty 2019. They mention that Bannon worked for the White House, but then they add, I think the next 90 days to 4 months is going to be a real meat grinder. I mean, the pressure on the president is coming from many different angles, he said, adding later, I think you've already seen it from what the Democrats, some of these reports they've been dropping here without telling anybody. I think that now they control the House, they can weaponize this. They could weaponize the Mueller report. Bannon said he also expects the president to face primary challenges from more centrist and moderate Republicans. Some high-profile Republicans, including Maryland's popular Governor Larry Hogan, are mulling bids to mount insurgent campaigns against the incumbent president, which would be nearly unprecedented. I don't know, I'm sure somebody knows presidential history better than I do, whether or not an incumbent was challenged by his own party, but possibly. Still, Bannon said Mr. Trump will be in a much more battle-hardened position as a result of the political challenges he expects to besiege the White House in the coming months. After being pushed out of the administration in the summer, they talk about Bannon's history. I don't care about that. What I'm interested is that Bannon is saying this is going to be the most vitriolic year since the Civil War. This is more Civil War rhetoric. I want to clarify, because there's a lot of people who don't pay attention to the news, who think they poo-poo this idea. Oh, no, silly. I was reading something about, what was it? It may have been Vietnam. I can't remember which country. No, Lebanon. And people kept saying, it can never happen, it can never happen, it can never happen. That's basically what always happens. Before the first Civil War in the U.S., people kept saying, it can never happen. Nobody believed it, and then it happened. You're not gonna know or be able to predict what it's going to look like. I have no idea what it's going to look like. I don't think it's going to look like it did in the 1800s. I think we're going to see something that's akin to a kind of civil conflict. Our communities are so massive now with millions of people, it's not going to be two front lines marching towards each other, although it kind of has been with Antifa and the Proud Boys. I think it's going to be some kind of weird insurgency where people pop up and do random things. But there's more rhetoric here, right? Democratic chairman, Trump is the greatest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. And the reason I've pulled this up, because once again, from today, we have these two stories. Bannon saying this is going to be like before the Civil War. Now we have the Democratic chairman saying Trump is the greatest threat to the U.S. since the Civil War. There's a lot of talk that is prepping this idea, and it's putting it in people's minds. Trump derangement syndrome is so extreme that people are actually showing up to schools with guns and firing at police officers. I'm not saying it's necessarily involved, but people are going crazy. These people are posting online threats of violence, and they're starting to believe that, to me, it's like human centipede, okay? But all the people are connected to each other. They're eating each other's refuse, and it's getting more and more just putrid, and people are getting crazy. We'll read a little bit of this, and then I got another story I want to go over. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler, in an interview airing Sunday, called President Trump the greatest threat to the U.S. democracy since the Civil War. I view this president and his conduct as the greatest threat to the democratic system and to the constitutional government since the Civil War. That's ridiculous, okay? Criticize Trump all you want, but it's not like Obama wasn't doing these things too. This narrative they're pushing is needlessly pushing us towards a Civil War narrative. Whether it's threatening the newspapers or threatening the judiciary or calling people who criticize him treasonous. Nadler, one of the Democratic chairmen, set to probe various aspects of the Trump administration, said the House will soon be holding hearings into abuses of power and obstruction of justice. Clearly, there have been major abuses of power, major obstruction of justice, obvious violations of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, he said. All of these have to be looked at. Now, I will note, one of the things I told many of my leftist friends is, when Bernie Sanders lost the presidency, you probably want to vote for Trump for one reason. People will resist him, and it will rein in executive authority. In fact, one of the best things I think we got to see because of the Trump presidency is the restrictions on his authority and his abilities. I understand there's a lot of people who support Trump, and they like that he gets things done. I'm not one of those people. I actually I don't like the idea that Obama got away with all of these abuses of power, killing people in foreign countries, and then just pointing the finger and saying, well, they're of a certain age, therefore they're enemy combatants. BS. Not true. And he got away with it. Obama killed several American citizens. Where was the media? No one cared. You know what? I wish the media would have come out, sued him, and pulled back, and activist organizations would have pulled back on his authority. I actually appreciate that Trump has had such resistance. The president should be restricted, and people should be calling him out. But I will admit, I don't believe these people actually care about the fact that, the executive authority has been expanding too much. They just don't like Trump, and they're blocking him for BS reasons. And what concerns me then is once Trump is out and a Democrat gets in, if a Democrat gets in, they're going to let it slide once again. So I admit there is a positive aspect to reining in executive authority, but I don't trust the people who are doing it. The other story that I want to bring up when we're getting into the rhetoric of civil war is this story, which is actually from a couple weeks ago. Antifa activist facing assault charges was tied to Democratic policymakers. This man in the photo is Chepe. His real name is Joseph Alkoff. I know him. He's an extremist. I would consider him to be a wackaloon who's out of his mind, and he used to spread rumors and lies about me. But what's interesting, and why I bring this up, is you have to realize this guy was arrested for attacking the Marines in Philadelphia. If you don't know the story, 2 Marines were minding their own business when Antifa started screaming ethnic slurs at them while beating them. These guys had no idea what was going on, but they were screaming, Nazi white supremacist. This guy's out of his mind, in my opinion. But he was associated, to a certain degree, with some Democratic and progressive nonprofits. But let's see what they say. They say, while Democratic officials are distancing themselves from Alkoff now, until recently, he was a well-connected, aspiring political player in Washington who may have even had a hand in key policy proposals. So here's him with Maxine Waters. That may be a potential, Maxine probably doesn't know who he is, but this guy was definitely inching his way in. I'm not going to throw shade at the Democrats over this guy being associated with him. I want to point out that people like him are getting active in Democratic politics. During Occupy Wall Street, many of these people were like, I'm not going to play your game. I refuse to approach the system. Now you have this guy walking up behind Maxine Waters and getting involved in the democratic process. You have the far left personalities getting elected into the Democratic Party. In my opinion, we have extremists who endorse violence. This guy specifically arrested on felony charges for yelling ethnic slurs while beating Marines, standing next to a Democratic policymaker. These people are getting active in politics. The extreme rhetoric is escalating, and they're getting violent. And as long as this keeps happening, I'm going to say it now, and I'm going to say it again, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I am not a prepper. I do not think the world's going to end. I just think the violence is going to get worse. And these people, I find it very disconcerting that they're starting to impact American policy decisions. You have a lot of people who are concerned about climate change. What do they want? They want a Green New Deal. I was actually in favor of the idea at its core. What happens? Ocasio-Cortez proposes an intersectional identitarian policy. Yes, it addresses the environment, but it also talks about this freaky religion that these people want to push. It talked about universal health care, It talked about education reform, guaranteed jobs, guaranteed economic security for those who are unwilling to work. That is not environmentalism. So I'm going to leave it there. Stick around. I got another video coming up in just a few minutes, but I do think things are going to escalate.